We've been talking about discipleship for several weeks now. I think this might be our fourth week that we've touched on this topic. And today where I feel the Lord's leading and where I think we kind of are as far as like the conversation, the discussion around discipleship, it's the idea that the disciples, like when Jesus called the disciples, he didn't say, hey, you, come follow me, and then just the two of them walked off into the sunset, and that was like how, discipleship happened. He actually called a bunch of people, and like sometimes it was two at a time or one at a time or however many at a time, but the point was he was actually calling them into a larger group of disciples. And so like he obviously had the 12 that he called specifically that were with him, I'll say, day in and day out for the majority of his earthly ministry. Then he had the 70 or the 72 beyond that he was entrusting with particular missions and special ministry assignments and such. And there was a larger gathering beyond the 12. And then if you zoom in, there's actually even maybe a closer knit circle of disciples where there was Peter, James, and John that seemed to be privy to certain events and certain activities that even some of the other of the 12 weren't necessarily always available or invited into or whatever it may be. And so like the transfiguration, the Mount of Transfiguration being one of those examples, and the raising of the dead. There was a young child that died, and again, only the three saw that initial resurrection moment earlier in his ministry. So where I'm going with this is Jesus' model for discipleship is communal. Like it is intended to be something that we actually do together. And to try to be discipled by Jesus or to be a disciple of Jesus as an island unto yourself is not a recipe for success or being effective, at least not I'm not saying you won't achieve anything. Jesus is faithful and good and capable, but yet you're missing out big time if you aren't connecting with some close-knit gathering of people that are also following after the same Jesus together with you, and you're rubbing shoulders with them along the way and even helping each other in your walk and progression of being disciples of Christ. We need one another to be effective disciples of Christ. And so don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying like, hey, without somebody to tell you what to do, you're lost. Like, no, you have the Holy Spirit, and you have your own personal relationship with the Lord, and hopefully you have your own prayer life and your own time with like, all those things. But yet you are absolutely missing out if you're an island unto yourself. And that's the sum total of your walk with the Lord is just you and him. Now, I'm talking to a church full of people, so you're probably thinking to yourself, well, Tim, the problem solved. Here I am. I came to church. Like, that's what you mean, right? Well, no, not exactly. Yes, this is part of it, maybe, is a fair way to say it. But I don't think this is all of it. I think if you dumb what I'm saying down to well, I go to church on a Sunday once a week, and I call that being discipled together, I think, again, yes, that is productive and good and part of the whole of what I'm saying, but it absolutely isn't all of it. So like, let me give you some example from my own life and how this like started to work. So when I first came to Christ, I was like 19 years old, 18, 19 years old. And so my like group of like other disciples that I was like close with, they were all people my age. They were all college students. And like, soon after coming to the Lord, I ended up living with, it was like 4 or 5 guys in a house, and we were all Christians, and we all went to the same church, and we were all disciples of Jesus. And so there's like this natural kind of like outflow of like the way our life was constructed, where it's like we're kind of running together. And like what it did is it created space for us to like learn from the almost like the dynamic of the group of being together. So like some of the time when Jesus was teaching the disciples, do you know what he was doing? He was actually responding to their conversation between themselves. Some of the time what he was doing is he was actually watching like how things were unfolding with them, and he was actually using that as a space for him to actually call the whole group, both individually and collectively, to a higher place. But without the group dynamic, that opportunity is not present. Some of what was happening was there were different personality types, different strengths, different weaknesses, different flavors of people, all concocted together in this discipleship huddle, this gathering. And in that dynamic, you started to see, wow, like if someone's going to get out of the boat first, it's probably going to be Peter. But maybe we need a Peter around. Maybe we need somebody who's willing to get out of the boat first. Like if somebody's going to ask the question that we were all thinking, but nobody was bold enough to say out loud, Peter will do it for us. And so like strength and weakness, so you could see like little glimpses of how this group dynamic might have worked. If somebody was going to be leaning up against Jesus' chest during dinner, and you needed to hear like the secret intel from the Lord, who are you talking about when you said that someone's going to betray you? And he's not going to say it out loud in front of everybody. Well, you could ask John that question, because he's probably leaning up against Jesus. And so there's this group dynamic set of things that started unfolding. I don't think we got a full picture, but so anyways, like I'm in this house with these dudes, and like we're a bunch of like cavemen. Like we are not mature individuals. Like we were not ready for life. Like we were 18, 19, 20 years old, whatever age group we were at that point, and like we were all single bachelors and like newly minted adults, but like first time off on our own kind of situation. So like I remember the one dude, like he came in later than the rest of us, and I don't know, we had like a double bucket sink, like kitchen sink, and like his dishes took over both sinks, and then took over the space above the sinks, and then the space around the sinks. And before you know it, there is no sink. There is no counter. There are just the dirty dishes. And like this would go on for weeks, where like, and there's like flies and stuff. And so like, it's a funny thing and it's a gross thing, but like it created a dynamic where it's like, we had to learn how to navigate each other's stuff even. Like our each other's problems, our each other's weaknesses, or each other's failings. We had to learn forgiveness. Like, we had to learn, like, at one point, we staged like an intervention for that guy. And we're like, he thinks he's coming in to hang out, and we're all like, hey, we need to talk to you. It's about the dishes. And like, we sat down like for a good while, and we talked to him about like what the dishes were doing to the rest of us, and how it was affecting the whole house, and affecting the hygiene of the home, and like how like it affected our social gatherings, and how people don't want to come over anymore because this is a problem. So at one point we did the dishes for him. And so we even learned like sometimes you end up carrying each other's burdens. And even in your weaknesses or your failings, when you're discipled together and you're running together with other believers, you start to learn how to carry the load for one another when you need it. And like these are, I'm giving you kind of like silly examples of this from my like early time in the Lord, but like transport this into your today. Like you probably don't need to do the guy's dishes that don't, like it's probably not your problem right now. But you might have somebody that has caused you trouble or challenge or harm, and you could either treat them as an adversary, or you can treat this moment as an opportunity for the grace of Christ to show up in that relationship. And sometimes that means addressing the situation in love, and sometimes that means getting in there and getting your hands dirty and helping solve the problem. And it's probably more than one thing, but forgiveness is part of that, and patience is part of that, and so, yeah, I mean, I wasn't the dish guy. I was the mail guy. So like I remember I would let my mail like stack up. Like first of all, I still don't check. Rach, am I good about checking the mail? No, I'm not. There, you all know it. So I don't always get my mail every day. Like, can't be that important. Like, email me if it's important, text me, like whatever. So back in the day though, I really didn't stay on top of my mail. And this is like, this is 20 years ago now, 20 plus years ago. So like, there was a lot less electronic stuff happening. There was a lot more things happening by paper mail. So like my mail would pile up and I would just put it on the kitchen table because we were bachelors. We didn't have a place for the mail. There wasn't like a spot where you put the mail that was right. So you just put it where it fit, which was, there's no counter space because of the dishes. So you put it on the table, right? And so like, I remember one time, one of my roommates was like, hey man, I think you got to take care of that mail. And I'm like, yep, gotcha. And then I didn't do it. So like a couple days go by and like, we're hanging out with some people that don't live with us, and he comes over, the same guy who asked me to clear his mail comes over, tries to sit at the table and sees there's no room. So he looks right at me in the eye, like deadpan, and he just slides it all onto the floor. And then he puts his stuff down and eats his meal. And this is in front of like our friends, like in front of everybody. He just like totally like, just like belittled me and mocked me and like, embarrassed me in front of everybody. And I was speechless. Like I didn't know what to say. I was like I could actually, this is kind of, I could feel like almost tears starting to well up because I was like so like offended and hurt, and like I didn't let myself cry, so it didn't happen, but I was close. So anyways, we had to learn forgiveness. I had to learn responsibility. I had to like all these things, like silly examples, but like if you're not running with other disciples, you miss out on that opportunity. And you also, so we were in caveman zone, so like we weren't awesome at this yet, but what we started to learn to do a little bit later is it wasn't just like, okay, well, let's forgive each other for our caveman behavior. It did turn into like, how do we like refine each other and help each other? And like, some of us were good at certain things that others weren't, and it wasn't like a failure, it was just a difference. And like, we learned how to work together in a way that brought Christ forth in the house that it wouldn't have happened if we weren't running together. And life changed, so like eventually like people started getting married and moving out and getting, big boy jobs, and you don't live with your roommates from college all your life. And so like life changed, but then like so did pretty much my entire Christian life, I've always had some group of people, and yes, it tends to spring forth from my church participation, but it is not just going to church. It's more than that. It's the community and the relationship building that's deeper than just showing up on a Sunday morning. And there's always been that circle of people. So like Mike is in my circle, Dave is in my circle, Terry's in my circle, like obviously Rachel's in my circle. A bunch of you are in that circle with me. Like, but like there's that tight, more like day in, day out kind of like relationship where discipleship gets amplified because we're doing it together and we're connected to one another while we're connected to him. And that's how this whole thing wants to work. So let's get into it. That was all kind of backdrop. We've been talking about what Jesus said about discipleship for a few weeks now. And this was my best attempt to summarize that. And so we went to like a dozen plus different passages, all quotes from Jesus. And like, I tried to boil down, like, what were the key things that Jesus seemed to say time and again about discipleship? Like when he was talking to his disciples, describing discipleship, these are the types of things that seem to come up again and again. So disciples, number one, first, they follow Jesus. They're with him. They go to be with him, present to his presence. Like for us, it's spiritually engaging our hearts to his and becoming sensitized and aware of his presence in our everyday. They followed a flesh and blood guy around. Like they had a rabbi that they literally, like, if he goes to this next town over, we're going to go with him. If he says we're going to take camp here or stay in this lodge, this is what we're doing. Like, so they physically followed him around. We don't do it physically, but yet spiritually we connect and engage our hearts to his, and that's how we spend time with him and be with him and follow him. We also, disciples, they do what he says. My sheep know my voice. They follow me. I call them each by name. There's a personal call to each person, each disciple, each member of the flock. Jesus is saying, hey, come with me. Come be with me. Come do this. We're going out now. And there's a personal connection that each of us, we respond to his voice. We do what he says. Jesus said at one point, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I say? Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I say? He's poking. Like, if you're going to be a disciple, there's got to be a heart posture, and you're not going to do it perfectly all the time, every time, but there's got to be a heart posture that says, when Jesus speaks to me, my heart's desire is to do what he says, to respond openly and accordingly to what he's calling me to do. And then here's where, this is all review from the last few weeks. This is where we want to major. Love one another. Disciples love one another. He says, I might even put this in the next, here it is. John 13. So this is actually a Last Supper scene. This is a foot washing kind of scene here. He's getting ready for the Last Supper, and he's washing feet, and he's doing the things. And he says, by this everyone will know. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples. If you love one another. If you love one another. Said another way, Jesus is saying the defining mark of discipleship, like how you can tell that you're truly following him as a disciple, it's love. And not just love vertically toward him, but love horizontally to those that are around you and that you're the ones that God's given you that are, it's naturally, sometimes this is going to be your family members. Naturally, sometimes this is going to be your church family members. Naturally, sometimes this is going to be really anybody you're running with the Lord. And love is the mark of discipleship according to Jesus in John 13, verse 35. So, I skipped that. Disciples love one another. What does that look like? How do you love the way Jesus loves? And that's a bigger topic than we're going to get through today. But this is at least a starting point to start thinking through it in more specific terms. And so I talked about how, like, being with a bunch of cavemen in a cave, there's opportunity to forgive one another. Like, there's a lot. One night we were such boys. We were fighting. We were roughhousing. Like, we weren't fighting like angry at each other. We were fighting physically for entertainment value. Like, it was like, just for fun, we're gonna brawl right now upstairs in the hallway that's connected to all of our bedrooms. And so, like, we're like bashing each other into walls and tackling each other, and like there's definitely like all sorts of like we're like grapples and like headlocks, and we're just like barbarians going at it, like, just for fun. Like, nobody was mad at all. It was just because, why would you not do that if you have all this testosterone and like you just something's got to happen here. So we're fighting, and like I think there was 3 or 4 of us fighting, and the other guy wasn't there. And it turns out the reason, and none of us realized this. No, we weren't we were just in caveman mode, so we didn't realize what had happened. But the one guy who wasn't there, it turns out, he was in his bedroom sleeping. So like after like 5 or 10 minutes of us fighting, he comes out and he has this like, I don't know why someone would own such a thing, but he owned this wooden machete. Like you couldn't cut anything with it, but he had this thing, like, so he has this thing in his hand, and it's like, he says something not savory to us, and he's like, I have to get up at 6 a.m. for a test in the morning. He's so mad. He's like, his face is so red. And he's like, you guys need to shut up right now. So he starts hitting us with this thing. And he's beating us with this wooden machete at like, midnight or whatever. And then there's Ephesians 4, and it says, forgive one another, just as Christ has forgiven you. Again, these are cartoon level examples. They're silly, but like, this is like, I'm not even kidding about this part of it. I learned how to forgive because like we offended each other all the time. Like we did things, we were so mean to each other. Like one of these is later on is encourage. Like Hebrews 3:13, it says, encourage one another every day, like daily. Like, as long as it's called today, spur each other on toward good works and toward love. Like, this is Hebrews. This is the author of Hebrews, like, encourage every day, spur each other, point each other towards love, and don't forsake the gathering. It's all like this beautiful, flowery stuff. We made fun of each other every day, like every day. It was like, and it wasn't even like fair. Like, I remember one time we were out and like, I think the wind was blowing and my hair was longer at that point. And I looked at my friend, I was like, oh, there's like no mirror. I'm like, is my hair messed up? And he's like, it looks as bad as it always does. Like, no, it was a problem. We weren't like, again, there was no reason for that. It just was. Like, this is just how we were to each other. Again, there was lots to learn. There was lots of teachable and learnable moments being an early disciple with other cavemen. One of us came in later, and the reason why is because his living situation got turned upside down. And, again, new adults, you don't have a lot of income, don't have savings, don't have a safety net, no support system, tough, like, kind of childhood situation too. So he's coming out of all this stuff. He had no place to live. And so, like, I remember we learned generosity because, like, there wasn't room we had a 4-bedroom house, and now we have 5 guys. Caveman math even doesn't work there. Like, so like, he's sleeping on the couch, he's sleeping in the attic. Like, we're making him like a makeshift bedroom in this house that just isn't big enough to have him. But yet we figured out, like, and so we're buying him food. We didn't do this perfect. And we also made fun of this guy too and did terrible things. Just like I remember fighting that guy and getting bleeding from him. So like, again, it was in context of the whole, but like, yet we learned generosity in this cave, with these Neanderthals. We learned service. Like, one day, one of us did the dishes for that one guy. Like I said, like, we learned how to serve each other. We learned how to carry each other's burdens, and that's one of the scriptures there is carry each other's burdens. 1 Peter 4 is beautiful. It says, each of you, that includes you and me, each of you should take the grace that God's given you and use it to serve one another. So, like, I don't know, like, sometimes I think we think that our gifts are for our own, like, benefit. Or, like, how do I use this gift to my advantage so I can get ahead? Like, how like, I have this little mini superpower. How can I use this so I get somehow my own selfish gain? And again, like, I don't think God's against you using your gift to help yourself progress in your life. And yet, that's not the primary goal of the gift. The gift, according to the scriptures, according to Christ, is that gift that God gave you is actually meant to be a demonstrator of God's goodness toward others through you. Like, you get to be the lens. You get to be the vehicle that God's goodness shows up in a specific area for other people because he's gifted you in that way. And, like, if you can pull on this thread, like, all day, and we could do, 10 sermons on this, but, like, it could be any number of things, what these gifts are. And there's multiple lists of gifts from multiple different, like, angles. Like, are they gifts of the Spirit? Are they gifts of this? But, like, these gifts are meant to function in the context of community and being discipled together. So, like, in Ephesians 4, for instance, it says, each of you has been given okay. There are some apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers. Each one given to equip the saints for the work of the ministry so that we all would grow up and mature to the full measure of Christ. And I definitely skipped some of the middle language there, but that's where it lands. Like, all of those gifts are there to, like, collaborate together and, like, make, like, one by themselves doesn't really do the whole job. And Jesus is like, yeah, that's not going to work. We need to, like, distribute this across, like, a gathering. And then it needs to come together in this, like, concoction called a church or called a community of believers that run together or called a flock or huddle of disciples that are now, like, doing this thing together. And, like, when this starts to happen now maturity, now we can grow up. Now the head, who is Jesus, can properly supply every piece part of the body through the gifting that's been distributed throughout the body. And it's that connection that allows for that dynamic to happen the way it's supposed to. Okay. Yeah, the Bible uses a word that I've only ever really used, for the most part, in context of like church and such things. But it's an interesting word. It talks about edifying each other. Edifying. And so like if you were to like, this is maybe a slightly archaic way of saying it, but like a building, say like a skyscraper or something, or a building in town, it's an edifice. So what does it mean? It's like somebody built this thing from the ground, and like little by little, they edified it, and they built it up, and they made sure it was strong enough foundationally, and they made sure structurally the skeleton of this thing was strong enough and stable enough and sturdy enough to support the system and the weight of construction, until by the end of it, you have this whole thing that now you can go and live in and occupy or use for some greater purpose. And so the Bible says, like, yeah, that. You need to edify each other. And like maybe an easier way to say that is you need to be part of like strengthening each other. And so like that happens a lot of different ways, but like sometimes people just need to see the real you. Like sometimes you need to take the mask off and like maybe not put the Facebook social media version of yourself out to the world, and just let them see you, be you, and like as you follow the Lord the best you know how to, they're actually learning from your model and example. And sometimes even seeing each other for who we really are, and that like vulnerability and transparency, sometimes that creates space for us to strengthen each other in a way that we maybe cheat ourselves out of when it's all about showmanship and performance and outward display.
Thank you, Father, that you love us so much. And Jesus, we thank you that your blood speaks a better word. Thank you for addressing voices that we in our head and overpowering them with your voice. As Pastor Tim has said, we thank you. Father, we thank you for this morning. We thank you for that we get to be part of this body, and we get to be part of this church, and we get to be part of this group and keep growing into you, growing into Christ-likeness together, and not just alone. We love you, Lord, and give you all the praise, all the glory. I just want to encourage you to, at the end of the service, I'm not sure how Tim plans to wrap it up, but I want to encourage you to lean into community after this message. Think about an action step of somebody you're going to call, somebody you're going to text, somebody you're going to visit, someone you're going to get together with this week from this congregation that you can continue to do life together with. It takes intentional carving out time in your schedule for a relationship. And so I just want you to think about that before you go today. Maybe set up a phone call or a coffee with somebody.